Hey guys, I'm Avish. This is the 33rd video of .NET MAUI with Syncfusion control series. In the previous session, we discussed about the features of Syncfusion map control and explored selection, equal and range color mapping, map bubbles, tooltips, and marker features. Please review the previous session before proceeding. In this session, we will focus on the rest of the features of Syncfusion map control, such as custom map markers, which shows the markers for a shape layer with specific latitudes and longitudes. We will use multiple markers to denote important locations in the .NET MAUI maps. We will also discuss about arc layers and arc lines, where arc layer is a sublayer that renders a group of map arc or map shape layer. The arcs is a collection of map arc. Every single map arc connects two location coordinates through a curved line. The start coordinate is set to map arc from property and the end coordinate is set to map arc to property. We'll explore adding arcs to the world map in this session. Polyline is a sublayer that renders a group of Map Polyline on MapShapeLayer. The polyline is a collection of Map Polyline. Every single Map Polyline connects multiple coordinates through a points property. We'll learn about how to add polylines and customize them. The tile layer renders the tiles returned from a web map tile services such as Bing Maps, OpenStreetMaps, Google Maps, TomTom, etc. We will explore on adding tile layer in combination with polyline. Let's now switch to the coding session and get going. We have concluded the previous session by adding map marker to the world map. However, we are not aware of the location of this world map, as we are unable to display the location name of this map marker. That's because the map marker doesn't support the location name property or the time or date or any other properties. So let me take a closer look at this map marker structure of the class. And look at that, we just have the latitude, longitude, icon and other properties, but we don't have a property related to name. In order to do that, we need to extend this map marker with our own custom marker. So let me switch back to the code, stop this application, right click on the model, add new item and name this class 1.cs as custom map marker.cs. Let me change this custom map marker to public and inherit map marker from Syncfusion MAUI maps. Within this custom map marker, I'm going to add a name property. Let's also add this constructor. Let's add a name private property and we'll also add a public property, public string. Let me add this as name in N capital. Look at that, we are getting an auto suggest. So let me choose the auto suggest. Let me tab and now the name is set. So we now have a private property and public property called name, which is being used here. Now let me expand this a little bit and add some condition statings. If name not equal to value, then we are going to set the name. Let me also add another property to denote the time at that particular location. In order to do that, I'm going to add a private property called time as well as a public property time, similar to what we have done just now. So I would say public string. Let me add the timer string for time being. I will enhance it later, return, then let's set the time as well. If time not equal to value, then we are going to set the time as time equal to value property. With these changes, we will be able to successfully display the name of the location and the time of that particular location. However, we want a running timer for each of these locations. In order to implement that, we are going to implement the interface called iNotify property changed event. When we are implementing the iNotify property changed event, we need to declare a new event called property event changed handler and leave it. Whenever there is a change in the property, I'm going to notify the property by calling this notify property changed event. Let me also add that after this time value as well. Now we have property changed event and we are also invoking the notify property changed event. I forgot to add the property notify property changed event. So let me add that protected virtual. We have already added this event in our previous sessions. So please refer to them before proceeding further. So let me copy and paste it from my other window to make it faster. I'm going to add the notify property changed event so that it invokes the property changed event, notifies the map component so that map component will refreshes the time buffer that particular location constantly for every second. I'm going to show you how to write the code so that we can invoke this property changed event for every second to reflect the timing on the map. Now that we have done with these changes, let me switch to the Maps view model, and instead of binding the map marker, let's bind the custom map marker. So let me change this observable collection to custom map marker. Now notice that the custom map marker is nothing but our new class that we have created, which is inheriting the map marker. So I can easily bind this custom map marker. So let me scroll down a bit, and instead of creating this as observable collection of map marker, I'm going to change these things as custom map marker. I'm going to add the map marker with the name and time, which means I can add custom map markers with the latitude and longitude and the time offset as well. So how do I do that? Look at that, it's not throwing any error. That's because it's an inherited class. So let me remove all of these markers that we have added earlier and start adding the new markers. So let me create the time from the UTC now, create a variable called current time, and then I'm going to add custom marker list right after this time. I'm going to add the marker for London. So let me also rename this markers as custom marker list so that it is easy for us. I've renamed it here as well as while adding the custom marker list dot add. So let me add London with latitude and longitude, and it's easy for you guys to find the latitude and longitude. Let me show you how to do that. To identify a latitude and longitude, you can Google it anywhere, or you can come to the Google Maps and search for London. The moment you select London, it will actually display this coordinates. If you observe this, the left part before the comma separator is the latitude, the right part is the longitude. Now you can use it and add the custom map markers in your list, as many as you need. So now when I switch back to the code, I've added the custom map marker for London. I'm going to add for different countries and cities over here, like such as Los Angeles, Washington, Dubai, Delhi, Brisbane, Brasilia, and Harare. So let me add them right after these two markers. Now once these changes are done, we need to switch to the view and switch back to the map view where we are binding the markers. Look at that, it's showing a warning stating that member not found in data context maps view model. That's because we have renamed it from map model to custom marker list. This is the change that it is denoting. Let me copy this custom marker list, switch back to the mapview.xml XAML file and change this to custom marker list. And let me expand this resources. If you remember our previous session, I have given a hint that I'm going to comment this for a moment and I'm going to uncomment this back. That's because I have added the custom marker with name and time properties. Let me now uncomment this and change the font size as well. Our caption shows me very small font size, so let me uncomment this, change the font size to 12. Now we are binding it with an ellipse with a color red, and then we are also adding labels to these custom markers. Let me run this application and notice the output. Before running the application, let's also add a zoom behavior within this shape layer so that we can zoom through the markers. So I'm going to copy paste the code that I have already done in the previous session. So let me run this application and notice the output. Look at that, we have encountered an error. That's because I have not closed the class, I believe, or the namespace. I've closed the class. I just need to close this namespace. It's done. Let me run this application and notice the output. Look at that. We now have the markers with the location name as well as the time. However, if you notice that the time is pretty static, it is not ticking. Let's now make it dynamic so that it ticks for every second. We can make it tick for every second or minute. Let me make it tick for every second. So let me switch back to the code and do the necessary changes. Let me switch back to the maps.xaml file and create one method called private bool update custom marker. Let's add the necessary changes to tick the custom marker here. So let's return this as true for now. And before this statement, let's loop through the shape layers of marker. So we have binded the custom marker list for this shape layer. So I'm going to loop through the shape layer and increment the time for every tick. So I'm going to add for each loop and say that, let's say if marker is a custom map marker, within each of this custom map marker, we are going to add the time depending on the time zone or the time difference between UTC and that location. Let's say if the custom map marker name is Seattle, then I'm subtracting a time span of 7 because this location is 7 hours behind UTC. Similarly, let's say if it is London, we are not going to add any time difference. We are not going to add or subtract any time difference because it is equal to UTC. So I'm going to add the rest of the else statement. We can make it more dynamic. However, I just want to display or show you how it works. So I'm literally using the custom map marker name and adding or subtracting that location. We can also use the custom map picker and we can add the time span right when we are adding the custom marker over here, and then we can subtract it dynamically. I will show you that in a moment, or I'll leave it to you guys to experiment on this. But for now, depending on the location, we are changing, adding or subtracting the time based on the time zone. Now that we have done these changes, what we need to do is we need to invoke this or start a timer which ticks every second. So I'm going to create one method right above this update custom marker and call it as start timer, and in this start timer I'm going to add a delay for 500 milliseconds and call this method every second. The update custom marker, I'm going to invoke the update custom marker method every second. Of course, we can add a boolean variable to start and stop the timers to handle it programmatically. So I'm going to create another method called stop timer, and then I'm going to invoke this start timer and change the property that I'm returning to true to. I'm going to change this and add this as false, or at the end I'll keep the return true as well. Now if it is not start timer, if stop timer is triggered, then we are going to return it as false, otherwise it keeps ticking the timer. So let me start the timer in a maps view constructor. Now that we have done the necessary changes, let's restart the application and notice the output. Look at that, we have the location name as well as timer ticking for each of these locations every second. Now that we are done with the custom markers, let's now focus on creating the arcs around these custom markers. Let's say we have the flights departing from London to all of these custom marker locations. We can represent them as the arc components. Let me show you how to do that. Let me switch back to the code, and within the mapview.xaml file, let me create one private method called arcLayer. Within the get arcLayer, I'm going to use if this dot binding context is maps view model and call it as maps view model. I'm going to loop through this maps view model custom marker list, and I'm going to add the arcs dynamically. So let's say I'm going to declare a custom map marker and extract the custom marker list from this maps view model. Once I get that, I'm going to create a map arc layer, call it as arc layer equal to new arc layer, and then within the arc layer we're going to define all of these arcs equal to new observable collection. So let me instantiate this new observable collection and let me loop through each of these custom map markers. Look at that, the Visual Studio is prompt in the autocomplete. So let me tab this and let's add arclayer.arcs.add. I'm going to add a new map arc. Let's say new map arc, and we are going to define a from position from the arc. Where is this arc originating from? So I'm going to take the first one, which is London's latitude and longitude, and where is the arc reaching to, which is the destination of the arc, which is going to be the each of the rest of the custom markers. And then I'm going to add a stroke thickness of the arc, and then the stroke I have defined a light sea green, but feel free to change that. Change all of these property. I'm going to add a couple of more properties, which is stroke dash array as well as the high factor. Once this is done, let me close this. And I'm going to add the arcs to this shape layer. Remember, we have defined the X name as shape layer for this map. So let me switch back again. So I would say shape dot sublayers equal to new observable collection of the map layer, which is nothing but our arc layer. So I'm going to add the arc layer here and close this declaration. And this arc layer is the collection of map arcs. Let me restart the application and show you the output. Notice that the arcs are not displayed. That's because I'm not invoking this method in the constructor. So right after starting the timer, let me invoke this method and restart the application again. Notice that it is still not displaying the arc, and when I mouse over on this binding context, it is showing as null. That's because if you switch back to the XAML file, the binding context is defined at the scroll view level as a maps view model. We can either add an xname to this scroll view binding context and use it, or we can move it to the content page. In this instance, let me move it to the content page dot binding context and move out this maps view model to this content page binding context, and let me remove this scroll view so that this maps view model is available globally. So let me restart the application again and notice the output. Notice that we now have the arc starting from London and reaching out to different destination of the custom markers to LA, Washington, Brazil, Harare, Dubai, Delhi, Beijing, Brisbane, etc. With this, we have successfully completed learning the arcs feature in the Syncfusion Maps component. Let's now focus on adding the polyline, which is our last feature of Syncfusion Maps component. Let's now focus on drawing a polyline between two markers. So in order to do that, let me create a new map component. So right before this previous map component, let me add a box view so that we can keep the latest feature at the top, and let me add this map SF maps. Sorry about that. So let me copy the maps component, and then let me close the layer as well as the SF maps. Now within the maps layer, instead of using a shape layer, I'm going to use a tile layer, which is what we discussed, where you can add a URL template as a Google map or a Bing map or any OpenStreetMap. If you are using Bing or Google map, ensure that you subscribe to their pricing model and add the subscription key, which is outlined in their documentation. So for now, I'm going to use a map tile layer where I'm showing the marker tooltip, and also we are pointing the URL template to OpenStreetMap. After this, let me close this map tile layer, and within the tile layer, we are going to add tile layers sublayers. Now we have different sublayers to show the map sublayers and the polyline within those sublayers. So let me add a maps.polyline. Look at that, we already have a prompt polyline layer similar to the shape layer, and within the polyline layer I'm going to add maps map polyline layer dot polylines. Within this polylines, we'll add a polyline and the points. So I'm going to declare maps colon map polyline, and then comes the points. We can define the points in the code behind by calling an API and binding those points from the Google Directions API or Google Places API by subscribing to them. But for now, I'm going to add them manually as a static ones. When we are going to do a live application, we'll focus on adding them from those APIs. So for now, let me add the points, and within the points, I'm going to add couple of latitude and longitude points within the US map. So I'm going to add these maps and leave it, and I'm going to add the zoom pan behavior as well after this sublayer. So let me just add a zoom pan behavior so that we can zoom through that. I'm going to add maps colon map zoom pan behavior and enable double tap zooming to true and close this one. We're going to enhance this zoom pan layer in a moment by focusing the map on the center. I'll show you how to do that. So let me run this application and display the output. Look at that. We now have the map and we have a polyline created on the US. Now when I hold my control and zoom on this map, I need to reach to this map till the polyline level, which is between two cities. I have just randomly selected two latitude and longitudes. However, I want this zoom position to be accurate over the United States map. So in order to do that, there is something called map tile layer center feature. So within the tile layer, right after initiating the URL template, I'm going to add maps colon map tile layer dot center, and within that I'm going to add something called map latitude and longitude, and I've already taken the latitude and longitude of the US map so that it centers the focus on the map. After doing that, we need to increase the zoom level. The maximum zoom level that I want to create within the layer is 10. The minimum zoom level, I'm going to add it to 5 after this maximum zoom level. The current zoom level, I'm going to define it as 5. Please read about the zoom levels at your convenience. But right now, I'm going to restart the application and show you the output. Look at that. Map is zoomed to a level 5. which is our starting zoom level, and then it is centered to the USA. That's a reason now if you look at this map, the line is drawn between two locations of latitude and longitude that have already defined. Look at that, I can zoom it to the style layer which already defines all of those cities and states available in the US map. With this, we have successfully completed binding the polylines to the Syncfusion Maps component. On other note, we are binding the shape sources using the Syncfusion's CDN component, where it has listed the GeoJSON files under map data. However, Syncfusion doesn't support few GeoJSON files, or some of the GeoJSON files related to Canada are not available in this shape source. So in order to procure all the GeoJSONs for different countries, you can look upon to this notes.txt file, where I have listed a website where you can download the country related GeoJSON file and embed them as a shape resource. So if you look at this code, let me close this. You can download Canada or any other GeoJSON files from this gadm.org website. Once you download that shapefile or the GeoJSON file, you can embed it as a static resource and bind that to the maps component. Let me show you how to do that before ending this session. I have already downloaded the Canada GeoJSON file, so let me stop this application and create one folder called shape source folder. Right click on the Syncfusion MAUI app, add new folder and name this as shape source. Right click on this and open folder in file explorer. Within this, I'm going to add canada.json file. So I've added canada.json file here. We just need to right click on this file, click on properties. In the build to action, make it as an embedded resource, or you can add it to one of your CDN paths and use it from the CDN paths as well. Once you add it as an embedded resource, it gets added to the end somewhere as Canada as a shape source file. So once you add that, we can bind that using the map component. So let me copy this maps, and right after this vertical stack layout, let me paste this map as well as add a box view separator between these two maps. And I'm not going to bind it here, the shape source. So let me remove the shape source. I'm going to remove the markers, marker templates and other things. Xname, I'm going to change that and remove the Xname as well. And within the code behind, I'm going to add the shape source for this Xname. So let me name this as Canada layer, shape layer. And let me use this in the code behind to bind the shape source canada.json file. In the code behind, we are going to add this dot canada shape layer dot shape source equal to map source dot from resource, which is within this solution file. So I'm going to add Syncfusion MAUI app, which is the project dot the folder name dot canada.geojson file, which is our JSON file. And then let me run this application to show you the output. Look at that. We now have the Canada GeoJSON is binded to the shape layer. With this, we have successfully understood and learned the Syncfusion Maps component. In the next session, we'll pick another component and take a deep dive into that. Till then, thank you for listening and have a great day.